Esta
Recording.
conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
Okay, this is the 71, 72 by the conference that we realize about how we are fighting the effects of the COVID, okay, in our economy, in our industries, also in our society, okay. All the by the conference are in a similar structure, okay? So we have 3 blocks. The first one is the conceptual framework. It's for you to explain what are you doing, and mainly in this case, what kind of disruptions or problems is suffering your ecosystem. That today we are speaking about electronics, okay? The second and the third block are dedicated to the dialogue between the attendants, okay? We will have the opportunity to hear comments, opinion, or new information from everyone. Okay, the proposal is to be very, very short in the interventions, straight to the point. Okay, maximum 3 minutes per attendant. The proposal is to first speak about disruptions and need, and later focus on potential solutions. Okay, we are doing this series of by the conference with agreement, a contract with the European Commission. This means that the results, the minutes of this meeting will be presented to the Commission officially, okay? In fact, they have the commitment to answer some of the proposal, okay? I think that's a very good opportunity for you, for the ecosystems. This is not only a forum for clusters, okay? We are organizing, the European Cluster Alliance is organizing this forum, but this is an open forum. I will show you the main idea. The main idea is that we are sharing leadership in a wide scope of different organizations, okay? But as I said, the focus now is just to understand what is happening in our industrial ecosystem, and if possible, make things happen, okay? Make things happen to solve the problems, okay? The Commission, the European Commission is willing to do that, okay? And we are collaborating in that area, okay? So when we are speaking our industrial ecosystem, I don't know if you have heard, but the Commissioner Hervé Ribot announced the classification of 14 different industrial ecosystems. Electronics is one of them. We don't have, I don't have the detail, okay? But speaking of disruptions, what we would like to know is, if possible, a clear definition of the disruption and the reasons for that disruption, and how high is the impact, okay, in the ecosystem. It could be something that is happening now. There is noise from somebody, sorry. If you are not speaking, please put your mic off, okay? I think, sorry, Hervé, I think it's from you. Okay, thank you very much. So we want to focus on the main disruption, okay, on the more important. It could be small but high in impact, okay? What that is happening now or could happen in the future, okay? Because it's not only about what is happening now, but if we know that it is a high possibility that in 1, 2, 3, 4 months we can have problem with some kind of, for example, of supplies, raw materials or whatever, okay, it's also good to speak about that. That's the main idea, okay. And the floor is yours because you are the expert, you are who knows about your ecosystem, okay. In fact, we have today very, very, very good experts, so thank you for coming, joining us. And Hervé, the floor is yours. 10 minutes maximum, please. Now I need to. You need to activate your microphone now.
Okay. Can you?
Now.
Can I share the screen now?
Yes.
Screen or application, whatever. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet.
Okay.
We don't see it yet.
Okay.
If not, as I have it, I could share from. No, yes, we are seeing it now. Thank you.
Okay.
You can go on.
Okay. And if I change it, you see it also?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you this survey that we have been doing with our members from the electronics industry. So just to tell you, Minalogic is an innovation cluster that was created in 2005, and we cover the complete spectrum of technology, digital technology, and going through, of course, electronics, but also photonic software and content and usage, basically. So we are in France with 3 sites, Grenoble, Saint-Étienne, and Lyon. So the survey we have been doing in the last 2 months is based on about 400 interactions we had with our members, most of them working in the electronics industry. So as you can guess, mainly by video conference or phone calls. I should say at this point that this survey is really a qualitative one and not a quantitative one. So I will show you some results or information that we got on 4 aspects. First, people and companies as a whole, then R&D activity, commercial activities, and financials. So on people themselves and companies, fortunately, we have been seeing very few bankruptcies at this point, less than probably 1%, but a few very small companies, fragile, did stop their activity. 80% of people work from home, as you might guess. Few issues were reported on quality of collaborative tools. I should say that some people had some poor connectivity in the countryside or in more remote places. So we do have still in France some bandwidth issue and some places. As you might guess, many electronics companies were already using telecommuting, so working from home, but not, of course, to the same extent, because now most people are working from home, and still now, as I talk, except manufacturing people, of course. So overall, people seem satisfied by their new working arrangement. Of course, the partial unemployment is now widely used. In France, unemployed hours are compensated by French government, as you probably know. Initially, we saw mainly parents, what problems to find arrangements for their children who use this partial unemployment system. But now we see more and more companies, even large companies, going into this partial unemployment system due to less purchase orders, basically. On R&D, so it seems that R&D projects are continuing. Little impact on software project, but of course a slowdown on hardware project, because when you cannot access processing or test equipment, there is very little you can do except doing some simulation. We were quite surprised to see that very few supply chain issues were reported, like lack of components, cards, and so on. So that was not too bad. And what surprised us most is that many companies have been coming back to funded project calls. I mean, publicly funded project calls. So we got a lot of project proposals to review as an innovation cluster. So what is the cause of that? Maybe engineers have more time to think about new projects, but also you could say, okay, cash in the future will be used to pay salaries, not R&D, so companies are looking for public funding. That could be also a reason for that trend. And also we see more companies going to collaborative projects. And again, you can think it's a way to keep in touch with your potential customers, so get customer prospection going. On commercial activities, in average, this is an estimate, we think the impact is about 20% on companies' revenue as of May 2020. Of course, the variability is huge. You have a very large penalty and companies that are directly impacted by COVID and less impact on some other companies. And I would say also people who sell products are a little less impacted, and people who sell maintenance or are doing subcontracting are much more impacted, of course. What we should remember this morning is that still what we see now was pretty much fueled by early 2020 purchase orders. And the good surprise that not too many order cancellation were seen, and logistics was pretty much operational, so shipment and deliveries could take place and billing could take place. But now our members are very worried about last quarter outlook, because now they see that very few new purchase orders are coming in. They have extremely low visibility of what their customers will request from them on service products mix. And as you might guess, all the international sales and marketing activities were extremely difficult with travels banned. So this marketing activity was very low. So generally speaking, our members are asking that we enhance their visibility through all the possible ways: webinars, virtual business convention. Yesterday we had with the Minalogic business meeting that was quite successful, but fully virtual, and continue with networking events as much as we can. On financials, it seems that most companies have 3 to 9 months of free cash, which is not that much. MRP were working fine most of the time. We should say that they received a very strong support from private banks to go through the crisis, and also from the French state and in first place Bpifrance, because they issued what they call state guaranteed loans to companies, and they put in place very quickly this partial unemployment compensated by the state. One category that is which is definitely in trouble now is startups, because all startups in the fundraising phase, I should say, are in trouble. Either the financial round were delayed, or even the discussions were stopped with the VCs. Pretty much VCs are consolidating their portfolio, but they don't want to invest into new companies. So that's definitely an issue. So what can we anticipate? And that will maybe the beginning of the discussion to come. Of course, business uncertainty will continue. We'll see in some markets a slow, gradual recovery. We already know, and I think you will discuss this in the coming days, crises will probably deepen in some fields like automotive, avionics, and mobility related. What people are telling us, they think that a key milestone will be September, October to assess market recovery dynamics. And of course, in this type of environment, most companies will be tempted to cut costs on R&D, training, communication, marketing, and maybe in some case, of course, reduce workforce. So what can we do to help? Of course, we need to increase our support on what I call cluster pillars. That is our key activities, because people will reduce cost on networking, innovation, business growth, and this is what we do every day, bring people together, and we need to do that even more. Innovation, communicate on open calls for collaborative R&D, support members to make good proposals, and organize what we did yesterday, these business meetings, business conventions, to try to boost the business. One aspect on which I had very little leverage, and it's open for discussion this morning, is a human resources issue, because we have in France, I would say, a systemic weakness. Unemployment is rather high in average. And in this type of environment, we definitely see a big issue there. So what can we do as to help? Maybe transfer people from some company to other company. I think everything can be on the table and discussed on that, because it will be difficult. Maybe what we should discuss is what will be the priorities, is what I call now a pandemic aware new world. So I will not, of course, we need to strengthen medical care system, but I think you already discussed that on May 28th. So I will not elaborate. The only thing I can say is that we are very far away from what we are promoting in my region, which is for medicine, prevent, predict, personalize, participate. With this pandemic, we have been far off any of that. No prevention, no prediction, nothing at all. So we have to worry about that. Accelerate deployment of high-speed infrastructure. Improve and ensure deployment of edtechs. Whoever had some kids to deal with in the last 2 months have seen the difference between telecommunication and telelearning. It's a different thing to teach people at a distance. You need a pedagogy and technology to do that, and we certainly need to work on that. Technology is there, but pedagogic project also needs to be there to find out how to teach people at a distance. Accelerate digital transformation of companies. Telecommuting now in France is becoming almost a norm, but it comes with the cyber security issue. So we certainly need to work on that, because more and more of us have been victims of cyber attacks during this confinement. And I think everybody agrees that we need to reduce international dependency, so relocate some supply chains, even in electronics, wherever we can, and have flexible manufacturing line. So we have been doing a few proposals to our region and to our states. So we do think that innovation clusters can accelerate recovery in France, but maybe it's only a local issue. We have very few national-wide collaborative projects to bring together large companies, small companies. So we would like to reinitiate that, and probably also increase coupling between market clusters and technology clusters like Minalogic. And of course, we are trying to reference and promote solutions that will provide solutions to mitigate the current crisis. So we need probably to have a catalog of these solutions, and again, organize open innovation days to share the best practice. If we want to avoid the nationalism or neo-nationalism trend that we are clearly seeing, we need to balance this regional effort with a European level effort. And we think the digital innovation hubs that will be announced at the end of the year are a very good tool to give access to our members to technologies that are not available in any given region. So MINASMART is our DIH, Digital Innovation Hub. But we need to use this tool to focus on of course, the European Green Deal that's going to be deployed, and also to the post-COVID organization. So how digital technology can increase our society with resilience to pandemic. I think that's it on my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you, Hervé. Perfect, and now it's time for Emir Demirkan from CEMI Europe. Thank you, Emir, for joining us.
Right.
Do you want to present something or just speak?
No, I will just speak as it was a last minute pleasure for me to join this call. I don't have slides ready, but I can send some slides to you after the call, and then this can be distributed. So my name is Emir Demircan, and I am from CEMI Europe, based in Brussels, Director of Public Policy. Thank you for organizing this call this morning, also inviting CEMI Europe. So I fully agree with what Hervé already mentioned, so there is no, I think, need to elaborate further on this. It's a serious disruption for many economic sectors. To our knowledge, in Europe, most fab operations have continued successfully. We only know one fab shutdown in Germany, but I think that was also later, managed to continue operations of manufacturing and production. Of course, all companies have taken many, serious measures to fight the pandemic and prevent the pandemic or the COVID-19 in their facilities. What I would like to focus today here is maybe a topic which is which might look too specialized, but I think it's important, is the cross-border mobility of workforce. So as you know, SEMI is an association of more than 2,000 companies globally, nearly 300 European EU-based companies. And then what our members tell us now, as of today, the main challenge is cross-border mobility of their workforce. So as you know, that the microelectronic supply chain is extremely, global, both within the EU and beyond the EU. So many companies work together to deliver the services and the production. So of course, there is no one single country in Europe and globally who has the full technology or production line in-house. Everyone relies on another company which is located in another country. That means that the equipments and the chemicals used in the manufacturing process require maintenance, which also means that some staff members have to travel from a country A to country B. This can be within the EU, but also beyond the EU. So what we did on this, we recently sent a high-level letter to Commissioner Breton to help the European industry to support cross-border mobility of essential workforce. We had previously sent another letter during the height of the peak of the pandemic to Commissioner as well, to recognize or support recognition of semiconductor and microelectronics as essential business. That's done. As of today, multiple countries in Europe, including France, Italy, and Ireland, and also a few others maybe as of today, have recognized microelectronics industry as essential business. That means that they cannot apply for shutdown. And we know that other governments or countries in Europe have stated that they do not foresee any forced shutdown. So what is next for our sector is really to allow the cross-border mobility of essential workforce. That's a challenge, as I mentioned, and what is good here at the moment, the European Commission already, has taken some initiatives, and they publish guidelines on cross-border mobility of essential guidelines for member states to implement. So according to these guidelines, I can share them with our group. The Commission identified certain occupations, including engineers, including technicians that are needed to deliver maintenance services, and other ICT professionals, for instance, are considered as essential workforce by the European Commission already in the guidelines. But what now we need to do? Member states should implement these guidelines. So that's why we invite the European Commission and member states to work together, how these guidelines can be implemented properly and also in detail, so that essential workforce of essential technologies like semiconductors or microelectronics can travel to deliver the maintenance or other services needed. Just to give you an example, one member mentioned that to us that a staff worker has had to travel from Scotland to Germany during the pandemic, and it took him 3 days and also 3 days to return. It wasn't very, very efficient, but this needs to be done. The second pillar of essential travel is, of course, international. As you might know, there are many global companies operating or providing service to European chip makers or other parts of the supply chain, and they do need to have staff members visiting Europe for certain activities. This is a challenge still. It's not very clear how it can be done. There are multiple examples. But what we recommend the European Commission here, EU, and also again member states, to develop fast tracks or safe lanes with some key bilateral partners from North America, from Asia. This is already done, for instance, between Korea and China, and I see that Germany now is engaging with another country in Asia to develop these safe lanes, how essential workforce can travel as smooth as quick as possible to Europe to deliver the service needed. This, I think, is also becoming important to fight the disruption of the pandemic. So we encourage the EU and also member states to develop these fast lanes with key trade partners of the electronics industry. Apart from that, we also see that, of course, because of owing the COVID-19, some health and safety trainings which need to take place in presence physically are disrupted. It's not very clear for companies how such legally, mandatory training can be delivered to operators concerning health and safety. Can they be done online? Yes, but the law says maybe something different. So companies try to find some practical solutions there. Of course, also onboarding of new talent is affected. Most staff members who were hired recently started online or working from home. But of course, that can be also a challenge. Imagine you start a new job and then you are not able to go start to real start the job physically for the first 3 months is a challenge. And also, again, microelectronics industry often hires beyond borders, so it's been also a problem. So I think the Commission is doing a great job. What we need here in the future is really this coordinated approach to minimize, reduce the impact of this pandemic. If we implement the guidelines that the Commission published by member state, if we engage with key partners of the European Union trade-wise and business-wise, would be very helpful. Of course, my final point would be the recent or latest communications of the European Commission, including the data strategy, the AI strategy, and the industrial strategy. These are becoming more important. As Hervé mentioned, now people are looking more into R&D projects or financing for skills and training and workforce development activities. It is very important that such strategies now are even reinforcing more what European electronics industry needs. For instance, SME, we advocate the market uptake of edge AI solutions in Europe. For instance, how we can bring AI from cloud to the edge. This is really the point that we are really pushing forward. These strategies like data, AI, and industrial strategy, for instance, can support the industry to invest more in AI at the edge to recover in the post-COVID-19 era, because this is where Europe is the strongest in embedded electronics, in professional electronics. So these are my points. I hope it was useful like this without the presentation.
It was extremely helpful. Thank you very much, Samir, for sharing with us. I love the idea of taking AI to the edge. So we should speak about it in another session, another time, because I really love that point. Okay, thank you very much. And now it's time for Mikel Idirin, that is from the company System on Chip Engineering, but is representing today the cluster Gaia in the Basque Country. Welcome, Mikel.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Antonio, for giving me the floor. My idea is to share with you a presentation. I also a very last-minute participant, but I have trying to summarize all the ideas I'm going to talk about in a simple slide. Yes, could you see right now my slide?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much once again, and really interesting delivers of Enrique and Hervé also. With Enrique, I have been involved in other European project, in IMOCO project, so it's just a curiosity, but we are all involved in different proposals from Europe and trying to boost the electronics in Europe as well. So thank you very much. Good morning, my name is Mikel, as Antonio has presented me. I belong to System on Chip engineering company, and a small company located in Spain. I'm focusing the electronic solution for wired communications, mainly Ethernet communications. But this time, I'm speaking on behalf of the Basque Country's electronic sector as a member of Gaia, the cluster Gaia, the Association of Computer, Telecommunications, and Electronics Companies in the Basque Country. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Just a comment before jumping into the main topic. My presentation and my ideas are very synoptic. They are based on 3 different aspects. the effects of the COVID into the electronic sector, and align it with the guideline of this session, the needs, what we need in Europe just in order to face these COVID effects, and some kind of, I'm going to point out also some kind of potential solutions. So starting with the first point regarding the effects that have been seen in the electronic sector after this coronavirus effect, I will point in this aspect also three main effects. The first one is breakdown of the current supply chain of electronic parts, components, and all associated subcontracting services. Let's say electronic manufacturing services, mainly sourced from Asia, China, as we know. Not only the components and parts, but also the main electronic manufacturing services are provided from China for the main of embedded systems and electronic systems worldwide. So many global industries related to the electronics, this is consumer electronics mainly, but not only, also other great industries such as automotive or industrial automation rely on China's supply chain. So the Chinese factories shutdown will affect and hit them dramatically. Obviously, the factory disruption in China will therefore be felt through an increasing shortage of electronics inputs in global supply chains. But here it is very remarkable, in my opinion, in my point of view, that this effect could be the same in a no factory disruption in China, Asia. So, but also in the case those countries decide to balancing the production in a non-fair or equitable way. Let's imagine they prioritize some countries over others. So in China, in Asia, they are manufacturing the main components, the main key components for the electronics. So the disruption in that manufacturing could, and it's directly affecting the electronic sector, but not only shut down on factories. So also imagine if China takes the position to, I don't know, to give some kind of priority to some countries, sorry, over others. So it could be really a very important effect for other countries that has not been prioritized by China. Okay, so great dependence of the supply chain with Asia, China, and I'm going to give some figures about in order to support this statement. India and Japanese manufacturers, 60% of the electronic inputs they source from abroad, coming from China. 60% of all the electronics that they purchase from abroad in India, Japanese, it's coming from China. In the case of USA, it's more than 50%, and in the case of European countries, in the range of 30%. But considering other important percentages coming from USA, and at the same time, USA has a very serious dependence on China as well. So this is just to point out the importance of China, Asia in terms of supplying electronic part components, but not only, so also electronic manufacturing services. And the second effect, it is important to highlight in this way the risk line associated to the supplying of key components in future. For instance, most of the chips related to the processing and communication functionalities into an embedded system, let's say microprocessors, system on chips, communication interfaces, and drivers, for example, are produced at the moment outside Europe. So Europe has a great dependency on United States and Asia, China, Taiwan, India, Japan as well, chip makers and foundries. Okay, in Europe we have not many strong chip makers or foundries, and we have a very great dependence on China, but also on United States. And the third effect, and aligned with the previous point, considering Europe at this point, unless it is not well positioned as key component provider, it is even more difficult to added value, to give added value to the key components. This is just in order to provide security enhancement, IoT functionalities, functional safety features, and something like that to baseline solutions. So at the moment we are not leaders, we have not a good position in Europe in terms of providing components, and we cannot bring added value to those components if we are not well positioned in that market. Okay, so wrapping up the effects of COVID, breakdown of the current supply chain of electronic parts and electronic manufacturing services, and future risk line regarding the supply chain of key components, And also, Europe is not well positioned as chip maker or supplier, so it's a very drawback at this moment. Okay, so this is more or less the main effect that we see from the electronics perspective. It's more related to the technical plane, more related to the operative plane than to the business model or to the context itself, but those are the ones we have identified. Regarding the needs identified are close related to the previously commented drawbacks. So Europe needs to make a stronger and to boost in some way its capacities in terms of electronic components manufacturing. In this case, I'm referring just to the manufacturing, not to the designing. The designing is a topic I will mention later on. Two derivatives in this case bring down the dependence with Asia, China in terms of key components, and also the second derivative is the creation of the employment. So it's important also to mention the creation of the employment associated to the manufacturing of electronic components and systems. So also needs to build up more capacity in terms of electronic manufacturing services in Europe. There are many factories, some of them very powerful, specifically located in Eastern Europe, or Romania, Poland, but our capacity is not comparable to our demand. So we have a misbalance there, and it's other point in which we need to go deeper. Okay. And last but not least, and probably the first action point we should consider, Europe needs to reinforce its role as key component manufacturer. France, Italy, United Kingdom, Germany have an important background in the semiconductor industry, and there are many design houses in Europe as well, and some of them very important, for instance, Infineon or ARM. But in terms of key component, our dependency with USA as technology provider and with Asia as chip manufacturer is dramatically high, and it involves a dependency. In this way, we are locked to the export control and international trade constraints of those technology providers. The US ban, for instance, or the regular export control classification number that the USA applies to all the technology created in the USA are clear examples about how a European company integrating USA technology, for instance, could be seriously limited in this in its trading activities. China is working in a very serious plan in order to gain technological independence over USA. I think that that is not the right way for Europe, not at all. But Europe needs to bid more for high-end semiconductor industry, in my point of view. Those are the needs, and just jumping into the end point, potential solutions. So what we are providing, what we propose is we need to identify the key electronics components for the European electric and electronics offer, microprocessors, microcontrollers, communication-related application standard, specific standard products, ASICs, memories, some other active or passive components. For instance, the line with the capacitors has become in a very important knock-on. Also, the problem in this case is more related to the raw material rather than to the manufacturing capacities. But to identify the key electronic components is really important for us at the first stage. In the same way, we need to identify the key services to play a relevant role in the growth and competitiveness of companies. This is the silicon design houses we have mentioned before, chip makers, the know-how and consultancy services in cutting edge and enable technologies, cybersecurity, functional safety, wired and wireless communications, and so on. Certification laboratories and premises and services, it's other very important point in this question, not only regarding cybersecurity, so also regarding all different aspects of electronic. The certification, it's a very important question we need to reinforce in Europe as well. And interoperability promotion activities and entities. For instance, the Industrial Internet Consortium, they are driving in USA. It's a very good example of how to put all together to try to make interoperable technologies between different companies is another key important question. And also very important, the talent management and professional skilling development. Okay, so pushing the importance of science, technology, electronics, and mathematics for society is really important. Just in order to engage young people to technical areas, we need more workforce, more task force, so we need more young people just in order to engage to electronic sector. And the last point, develop the smart working concept. With this COVID effect, we have faced very suddenly to the remotely working and smart working. So remotely working and connect working, we need to work on that topic. Also close related to the globalization and internalization, it's very important, the smart working. So the open mind and the open company concept. If we apply the smart working and the remotely working, we are not locked to the geographical constraints of the company, so we are more open to worldwide. It's another key question to drive. And finally, continuous working and capacitation of employees. Okay, so this is more or less my ideas, more related to a technical plane, but in these three main blocks. Okay, effects and taking as a starting point the effects, the needs, and the solution that we propose at the very beginning. So this is more or less my ideas that I can share with you in this discussion. Thank you very much, and I can look into your comments and questions.
You are very, very welcome, Mikel. Thank you very much to you. Okay, now it's we have 20 minutes for comments, new ideas, new approaches. Returning to the presentation of the today's session. Okay, we should try to look for those disruption and needs that have been mentioned, or some new, okay, and potential solutions. Okay, in the screen you have the list of questions that could be applied to the main disruptions. Okay, so comments, questions from the attendants.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dolores from Advanced Materials Cluster. Thank you for all the three speakers. I think that has been a great morning session. I have several comments and questions for all of you. Okay, you mentioned that there is some key components that need to be identified. Okay, which kind of, you will say microprocessors or whatever, but it's true that part of them are commodities that maybe are produced in Asia and will not be competitive anymore. So which are for you the key components with added value that we can try to fabricate here in Europe? This is my first question. The other is, what is really the bottleneck? It's the design of these new or these added value components, or it's the raw materials that we have no access because they are coming from Africa, South America, no lithium or silicium or rare materials. So where is the bottleneck, or are both? And how we can, in the case that there is a shortage or difficulty to access to these raw materials, which will be the strategy from your point of view to try to facilitate this access from European level? And the last one, what is the difference between microelectronics based on silicium and microelectronics based on carbide silicium? In this kind of these two microelectronics, we can be stronger at European level. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I think that the question is more or less for me, the third speaker, that I have mentioned the key components and the limitation of Europe in terms of designing and manufacturing the key components. So regarding the first question, the key components, yes, I agree with you that they are many of them are commodities, but I'm more referring to the microprocessors, the added value microprocessors or system on chip, let's say FPGAs, based system on chip. Also, in this new Ethernet communication time, so we are talking about time-sensitive networking. So many different companies, application specific standard product regarding the Ethernet switching, regarding the communications itself. They are coming from USA mainly. Not they are manufactured in Asia, but they are coming from USA. Xilinx, Intel, Marvell, and so on. So I referring to the microprocessor and microcontroller, high-end microcontroller and microprocessor components or parts, and also high-end communication system on chips. We have a very great dependence with USA technology, and also China has at the moment a very great dependence with USA technology. But because of that, they have started working in a very serious plane at government level in order to create some kind of independence in terms of technology over the USA. Obviously, China has a more restrictive trade context than Europe because they are under the US ban at the moment. But it's important to remark that the microcontroller, microprocessor market at the moment is led by USA, and it could be a problem because the USA trade and international commerce laws are very strict and constrained. Okay? For instance, we have a problem in the past year. We have a PO, a product order, and that we have rejected because we are using some kind of USA technology, and the customer in this case was from China. So I think that some kind of technological independence is really important regarding those high-end components. Regarding the second question, the bottleneck, in very few cases, for instance, the capacitors, the bottleneck is the raw material that they are producing in Africa, you have mentioned, but mainly the bottleneck is not the raw material, so it's the manufacturing capacities. Okay, so for instance, the memories or the FPGAs have at the moment a very great deadline, more than 15 or almost 20 weeks in some cases, but there the bottleneck is not the raw material, so it's the manufacturing, the foundries capacity. Okay, and regarding the strategy for Europe in this question, I think that it's from European level, from the European Commission, probably they need to boost or to start some kind of programs in order to emphasize, in order to boost this kind of semiconductor industries. Okay, we are good to design an electronic, we are good working with FPGAs, but we are not so good, or there are very few so good companies designing high-end semiconductors. So I think that from the European Commission for high level, we need some kind of pushing strategies, programs, or funding projects in terms of develop those kind of high-end components. Okay, it is an open source project also in terms of develop a RISC-V processor, and China, for instance, is working on that RISC-V processor. So I think that the European Commission has the key to open the door because there is a knowledge on design house, on semiconductor industry. There is enough knowledge in Europe, but probably we need some kind of global funding programs. This is more or less what I can provide you in terms of your questions.
Thank you, Mikel. Hervé, Emir, would you comment?
Right, I can comment first of all on the trade issue that Mikel mentioned, the US and China, that has global impacts. So as you know, the US law is extraterritorial, and if your product has, depending on the case, 10 to 25% American content, then you might need to follow the US law and so on. But it's not very clear how companies can still sell to China and so on, and that's becoming an issue indeed for the European technology suppliers, how they can navigate this US and China trade issues. On the other things, which parts of the electronics are really needed to be deployed and developed in Europe? I think Europe is, as I mentioned in my slot, Europe is very strong in embedded electronics, professional electronics, for instance, medical, automotive, aerospace. These are the electronic areas that I think Europe can focus on. We discussed this with our board members as well. For instance, I mentioned that edge AI is becoming an issue or development area for Europe. How Europe can take this opportunity based on its strengths. FTSOI is mentioned as a key European strength. How we can build on it. As you know, there is also the second IPCI microelectronics projects is being discussed and moving slowly. So this is also an important opportunity, how Europe can position itself better using IPCI, building on R&D, moving to first deployment or first prototype of manufacturing. Apart from that, I think these are all my comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Amir. Hervé? Oh, we are not hearing you, Hervé. You need to activate the mic.
Okay, so yeah, the COVID didn't change what was there before. So there is definitely a weakness in Europe for the availability of some key functions and system and chips and ASIC. And that was the case before the COVID, it's still the case. So obviously, nothing changed. I think what we can say is that there is some component on which Europe has a very good position, like in power electronics. I think somebody mentioned silicon carbide. There is also gallium nitride. There is also CoolMOS and all kinds of power components on which Europe has a very good position, with Infineon, ST doing a very good job. Now we know that on some digital components, there is just not the foundries in Europe. They are in Asia for the most advanced nodes. I myself just submitted a project in France to try to give access to advanced nodes to small companies, startups, and so on. It's very difficult subject because as soon as you want to access very advanced nodes, let's say anything below 28 nanometer, you end up with TSMC or in Asia. So you are asking for money to your European to Europe or to France just to buy mask and silicon in Asia and by the million, because if you want to develop a new ASIC in advanced node, let's say 14 nanometers, it will cost millions of euros and you will send most of the money in Asia. So you can imagine the type of problem we are facing when we want to promote fabless or development of very advanced components in Europe with this type of figures. There is nothing you can do. I mean, obviously I'm trying to do things, but the fact that the most advanced foundries are in Asia, sometimes in the US, is a fact. And I think if we wanted to change that, that would take billions of dollars to do that.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Okay.
Totally agree with you, Hervé. It's probably it's more easy to relocalize some kind of ENS, electronic manufacturing services, than the foundries, because but anyway, not considering the foundries, so considering the fabless that you have mentioned, I think that in Europe also we have ahead great and large way to do in terms of boosting the fabless. Yes. Okay, thank you for all your comments.
Okay, new comments from the attendants or questions? I know that there are very, very good experts also from other countries and clusters. Please participate. Stefan, what is your experience in Germany? Will you share? Okay, anyone?
Good morning. This is Jaco Huisman from the Joint Research Center. I have a question about following up on the discussion here on diversifying supply, perhaps moving or relocating some of the semiconductor production back to Europe. Is there a broader overview you have on what it would take if you look at the entire ecosystem and the early supply chain stages in particular, what you would need more in Europe or to have more diversified to make this dependency a bit smaller in the future? And also the question is, what comes after identifying what is needed? We are aware of the IPCI projects, also the one for batteries is a clear example, for instance. But how realistic is it from an economic point of view to grab back a bit more control, because it obviously comes at a very high price?
Who answers? Not easy questions.
Well, I believe.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hervé, please.
No, I'm just saying that, yeah, we can relocate in some case. I'm just thinking that maybe go to the next generation of components is also a way to go, because try to catch up with some people on the Moore law, for example, with very advanced nodes, it's maybe not the way to go. Maybe what we should try to do is to go to some other technology more disruptive, like photonic on silicon, for example. So we see very clearly that photonic functions and electronic functions are merging. We have very good R&D in this field in Europe. And I think maybe we should project and invest in this type of subject. Also quantum computing, you know, we are working in Grenoble on silicon-based quantum bits. So of course it's mainly science fiction for now, but why don't we rather invest in this type of new devices where we still have possibilities, rather than trying to catch up on more standard components where the result is already there. We just don't have the facilities to make them. That's a thought.
More generic comments. Actually, at R&D level, TRL 3.5 level, most technologies that Europe needs, we think are available in our RTOs, IMEC, LETI, Fraunhofer, and VTT, and so on. All of them, I think, have these technologies needed, but we need to bring this closer to the market. And I think for this one, we can look into new tools of the European Commission or the EU. For instance, they talk about testing and experimenting facilities within the Digital Europe program, which will start next year. It will have some significant budget to develop more testing and experimenting solutions for low-level R&D results, and how we can bring them out from lab to the fab. So this can be used. Also, digital innovation hubs and so on, other EU tools, I think also can be used to support, bring R&D closer to the manufacturing.
Thank you. Aurora, I think that you wanted to speak.
I was going to comment on the prices. Europe has to be aware that when things went to China, everything went to China, it was mainly for the salaries level. And then the leverage of doing things for the entire world became also a factor. So prices of everything, not only electronics, are a lot lower in China. But we have to live with the increase in prices if we want, and I think we do, to have strategically everything in Europe. The world will not be the same, and we have to bear that in mind. I also would like to say that using electronics in our company, we start by having a lot of difficulties to find the people that know. We get a lot of curriculums of engineers that want to be in mechanics and are trained in mechanics, but there's a shortage in people from electronics and embedded systems. We like to design our own electronics, but it's really hard to find those people. Also, I've heard from my suppliers, my Portuguese suppliers of cables, that they are facing in this moment, and this is a disruption in this moment, that the elements that they buy are like 3 weeks in customs to get in the country. So those things have to be treated now. Thank you. I don't have the solution.
Thank you, Aurora. Yes, upskilling, reskilling, and training.
For the skills aspect, maybe I can inform participants that SME, together with 19, all together 20 partners, we are running a EU-funded Erasmus Plus project called METIS, Microelectronics Training Industry and Skills. We started the beginning of this year. Okay, with the COVID-19 and so on, we have some certain extension. But at the moment now, we are really identifying key areas of growth for European microelectronics industry, and then what are the skills needed for those areas. So at the moment, we have around 13 key areas that we are working on. So if you drop me an email, I will be happy to connect you with the project. We have focus groups for each of these 13 areas. We are happy to welcome and include those who are interested in development of skills for the microelectronics industry. It's a 4-year project. We have the big companies, we have small companies, like including from big sites like Infineon, Bosch, XFAB. Also, we have Graphene from Spain, for instance, as the smaller scale company. We have IMEC as the R&D partner, and also we have schools and education providers from other European countries across Europe. So it's also we have Silicon Saxon as our regional cluster. So it's a very hybrid project. Brings a good ecosystem, and I would like to invite you to join this project, at least in the focus groups, and give us, tell us what your skills needs are, and then hopefully the project will be able to contribute to helping you.
Please share the link to the website in the chat.
Yeah, I am gonna do it. Okay. That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
You are really welcome. So it's time to close. I don't know if somebody wants to make a quick last remark. If not, we will close immediately. No, thank you very much. Tomorrow we will analyze the construction ecosystem. So you are also invited to join us if you want. Okay, construction and electronics very linked, at least in the smart building, I hope. Okay. Anyway, thank you. This is not the closure. Okay, we will continue working with you in the analysis of what is happening and what can be made to solve the problems. Okay, so we continue speaking. Bye.
Thank you.
See you. Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.